Okay, welcome back. Yokoso owashitare. Again, I don't know how accurate that is, but we're sticking with it. That's how I'm introducing this thing from now on. Okay, no fancy introductions. Let's just jump right into this story. This story is actually about the son of the guy who was in the last one, and his name is Tachibana no Suemichi. And of course, it being an old-timey Japanese story, we have to know that he was the former governor of the province of Suruga. And the story starts with him being a little bit of a sly devil and sliding into them DMs, if you know what I mean. Basically, he was getting really friendly with a lady of a noble house nearby. But as was the custom, he had to go during the nighttime. And you know, I feel like it's very pertinent to actually explain a little bit more in detail than I have up to this point what the practices and customs and ideas surrounding romance and marriage and other things were in ancient Japan. So usually it begins with rumors. A man would hear about the supposed beauty and grace and intellect and the amazingness of a woman without actually seeing her. And he would hear these rumors, they would spread all around court, and then he would decide that he wanted to slide into those DMs. Letter writing. He had to actually write letters because DMs didn't exist at this point. But he couldn't just waltz right up to her house and hand her a letter. Please, let's pledge our love to each other. Wink, wink. No, it had to be way more subtle than that and way more complicated because everything in ancient Japan is way more complicated than it needs to be. So he would write some fancy poetry. And again, if he's too forward, well, that just was no good. It had to be subtle. It had to be artistic. It had to be in just a certain number of words, and he had to have some sort of originality to it. He would have to write it on the nice kind of paper, and it had to be at the right time, during the right season, with the right colors, and he had to perfume it with some really appropriate incense, and then usually because of how their paper was, he could fold it up really tight and tie it to a branch of sakura petals or to a branch of maple leaves, something like that. And then he would hand it to his servants, who would then go and get in the good graces of the lady's servants, would hand this letter off to the lady's servants, who then would take it to the lady, and she would read it, and she may or may not be interested. If she's not interested, she just kind of threw it aside or whatever. It was considered rude to not at least reply. So she could reply in a way that was saying, hey, look, I'm not interested. Or she could just not. But if she was open to the idea of pledging her love to this man, then she would write a reply saying in a very flowery, artistic, roundabout way, yes, please come, I am all yours. And then these two noble people's servants would scheme together to get the man in there in the dead of night with nobody watching, and hopefully without anybody realizing. And then while there, they would pledge their love to each other. They would talk about the wistful transience of all things, the beauty of the moon, the sound of the crickets, and whatever, amidst all of the other stuff that they were doing. And then as sun came up, the man would hightail it out of there. He would just poof, he's gone, because he didn't want to be there when the whole house started getting active again and people discovered him. And then, as per tradition and custom demanded, that after the man enjoyed his time with the lady friend, that he was supposed to send a letter back to her, basically a morning after text, saying, oh, that was so great. Oh, I'm so sad that I had to leave. Oh, woe is me that the coming of the dawn has torn us apart yet again. Oh, I miss you already. Some Shakespearean, fanciful, frou-frou nonsense. Okay, I gotta admit, I'm a sucker for good poetry, quite frankly. I think it's great. And then, if I remember correctly, essentially what would happen is if the man did this more than twice, so on a third time, that was expected to basically mean that it was official, that he was now considering this woman his wife or one of his wives or a concubine or something, but basically he was expected to publicly announce in some way or form that he was now supporting this woman officially. And support usually just meant giving her parents a bunch of money and representing their interests at court. Because the woman, sometimes she moved in with the man, depended on what the man wanted and if he could afford it. Most of the time though, she just hung out with mom and dad in their house. And then mom and dad, by gaining a son-in-law who would have rank and status, they could then push for their own interests to be, well, represented at court. And then, of course, the woman was expected to hang out at home, and then occasionally the man would come by, visit her, and pledge his love, and maybe in the future get some children by her from doing that. And that's the way it was supposed to work. Now, that's not how it actually worked all the time, because men didn't always officially support the women with whom they had flings with, and women weren't always faithful to their husbands or their lovers. Everyone kind of had flings all over the place. Ancient imperial aristocratic Japan was kind of a smorgasbord of people just kind of getting around. Now, don't confuse that with people thinking that this was a good thing. This was still harmful to your reputation. Being a promiscuous person was not considered good by reputational standards. If you were a promiscuous man, somebody who just kind of got around and didn't support any of the women with whom you were spending your quality time with, well, society actually kind of frowned upon that and would call you a stupid non-committal sleazebag. And again, in this society, one's reputation was very important. That could mean the difference between getting a promotion towards a higher station or not. So reputation was a big deal. But if we are being honest, it was worse for women who were promiscuous, because not only did they have reputational damage, but if, say, they were married to a man and they were caught getting in a fling with some other men, well, then the man could then just decide that he's not going to support his wife anymore because she's no longer his wife and he's just going to toss her out. Now, again, usually women didn't live with their husbands per se, but what that would mean is that the parents, the father specifically of this woman who has been unfaithful to her husband, her dad would now be left without a source of income and an avenue to higher ranks and, somebody to represent him at court. And as women were at the mercy of their fathers, well, they were either at the mercy of their husbands or at the mercy of their fathers, one of the two. If they were at the mercy of their fathers and she had been disgraced and basically divorced by a man, well, her father is not going to be particularly happy about that. And then because of the reputational damage she's going to suffer, marrying her off is going to be even harder. And fathers would often use their daughters, even though men were technically considered the higher status sex. Having a daughter was actually more advantageous for a lot of people because it's much more easy to marry a daughter off into a higher status family, so they could potentially reap better rewards for that. So fathers of young women would often try to be very aware of the men with whom their daughters were speaking to, and they would actively encourage certain men or try to subtly encourage certain men and make it really easy for them to sneak into the house. But other men, they would make it very, very hard to do so and discourage them in very subtle ways. Because the whole idea is that you want your daughter to marry somebody really, really high class, because then you get all these good bonuses. But again, if your daughter was promiscuous, that could cause a lot of problems. So there's a little bit of the details about how some of romance worked at this time and why some of these things that are going to happen are the way that they are and why they're such a big deal. But returning to the actual story, so our main character, Suemichi, Tachibana no Suemichi, he was visiting a lady very regularly, but he was not making anything official, okay? They were just enjoying each other's company, shall we say. And it didn't take too awfully long before the samurai, which were these, big burly guardsmen, these warrior types who were posted all around and were supposed to make sure that no ne'er-do-wells got into the estate grounds or things like that. Well, they weren't particularly happy about this random newcomer, some dude, some outsider that they didn't know. And again, remember, Suemichi was trying to stay hush-hush about this whole thing. So they didn't know who he was. If they had known who he was and how high ranked he was, they probably would have been a little more understanding. But they didn't know who he was. All they knew is that some dude was sneaking in to their palace complex, I don't know, palace, but their estate, and getting it on with their adorable, lovely lady. Like, this is problematic. What if word gets out? What if her reputation gets damaged? Who is this guy? And he's clearly not doing anything. This could cause problems. We need to stop this. And it also just annoyed them. This random dude would just, because he would come in and he was trying to hide himself, but he's just wandering around the place like he owns it. Who the heck is this guy? How dare he? So these hypermasculine types decided that they were going to get this ne'er-do-well. But again, they didn't know when exactly he was going to show up. He could show up at any time. Usually at night, but they didn't know. So one day, Suemichi arrives, and he goes into his lady's room, and he's hanging out with her like usual. And he brought with him one young servant boy. You'll notice a pattern here. They usually have a servant with him. But Suemichi arrives, he's got a servant boy, and as per usual, he tells the kid, hey, go on back home. I'm going to be fine. Come back just before the dawn, and we'll head back out like usual. And the samurai hadn't seen him arrive. But once he was inside after he spent a little bit of time there, they heard word that he was there. And immediately they set up posts at all the gates, and there was a big hole in one of the fences that a gallivanting young Casanova could make use of, and they posted guards around there too. So now Suemichi has no way of getting out. And none of this went unnoticed. One of the lady's servant girls saw all these guards getting posted around everywhere, which was not normal. And she came in and she told her mistress, and her mistress came in and told Suemichi, who at the time he was laying down, just enjoying himself. He'd probably pledged his love to his lady already, but he was just kind of big chilling, and this lady comes in and goes, Suemichi, there are guards everywhere. I don't know what they're doing. Suemichi just instantly, what? And so both of them were a little bit flabbergasted and confused. What was going on? Why was this happening? And so they decided that the young lady would go to her dad and try to figure out what was going on. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was some kind of practice. Who knows? We don't know. Let's go find out. So the lady goes to her dad and she asks, hey, why are all the guards everywhere? Is there something going on? And her dad just goes, I don't know. I'm not in charge of them. As long as they do their job and they keep all the ne'er-do-wells out, I don't care. And again, this was a problem because she couldn't press any further, because if she pressed further, her dad would be like, why do you want to know so much? And then she would have to concoct a lie about not having a man in her room, which would probably go very horribly. So she was kind of stuck. And it was very likely that her father knew to some degree that there was a lusty lad, I like that word, lusty lad, trying to get in tight with his daughter. Get in tight. Oh, God, no. But anyway, so basically her dad had no reason to tell the guards to stop. They weren't causing any trouble. They were just doing their job. It's fine. So the lady comes back, tells Suemichi, yep, he doesn't know. We're in trouble. And so instantly Suemichi just goes, F, what? How do we get out of this? And he starts thinking of his options. What options do I have here? As one final thing, he sent one of the lady's servant girls to go out and see if she could, one last search to see if maybe there was possibly some way that he could get out, actually. Which she went, she came back, everything's guarded. There's no way out. Not only that, but these guards mean business. Like, they have sticks, they have swords, and they have their big billowy pants kind of hitched up in such a way where they can move. They're ready. They're ready for some action. You're not getting out of here. This is bad. So Suemichi's sitting there thinking, how do we get out of this? It's very likely that we're not getting out of this without some sort of public shame. I could stay here until dawn, stay here past when I'm normally supposed to be, but at that point the guards will come in and probably just drag me out, and then amidst all of that we'll probably get into a fight and I may end up getting killed. So, not the best option. However, if I tell them who I am, then they'll probably lay off of me, and I can send some people to go get a retinue to come pick me up and I can leave without anybody getting hurt. The only problem is, that will cause some severe reputational damage. It will prove that I have been gallivanting around and I'm not a committed, responsible dude. And it will also hurt the reputation of this girl who I actually really like. And I don't want her reputation to suffer. But what other options do I have? He's up a creek without a paddle. And reputational damage sucks, but at least it beats getting beat to death with a bunch of sticks and swords. So Suemichi had decided, this is what we're doing. I'll just hang out and enjoy the time I have here while I can. It's fine. Until he remembered one thing. His servant boy. His servant boy didn't know about this, and he was going to be coming back just before dawn. And it doesn't really change Suemichi's situation, but what he didn't want to happen was for the servant boy to show up, to get stopped at the gate. Who are you? Why are you here? I'm here for my master, and them to be like, oh, it's him, and then beat up his servant boy, maybe chain him up and tie him up and apprehend him. That would just cause the servant boy a lot of distress that he didn't need. And Suemichi felt bad about that. He didn't want that to happen to his servant kid. Come on, Suemichi's actually a nice guy. He just, really likes ladies and kind of irresponsible. But he's not a bad dude, He's a nice dude. So just to be sure, Suemichi had one of the servant girls for the lady that he was with go out and see maybe he had already shown up. So this servant girl goes out. She tries to ask the samurai, hey, has anybody shown up? And they just instantly turn her away, and they are not nice about it. They say some really mean things. It doesn't say exactly what they said, but, they're big, brutish, angry, burly dudes. And there's this little girl. All they know is she comes back and she's crying. Poor thing. But it was starting to become dawn. It was approaching those hours, and right on cue, Suemichi's servant showed up. And now Suemichi could actually hear what was going on at the entrance, or rather at the hole in the wall. I don't know where exactly he's coming in, but Suemichi could hear what's going on. And so this kid comes up to the entrance, and these guards stop him. Who are you? What do you want? And Suemichi's just thinking, oh no, kid, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean Oh, we're screwed. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. We're so in trouble. And he hears the kid say, oh, I'm the servant of the sutra reading monk that's on duty here at night. What? Wait a second. And Suemichi just has to take a second because that didn't make any sense until he realized this kid was a sly devil. This kid knew something was up. Clearly, that's the only reason why he would say that. So they let him in, but then Suemichi immediately goes, oh crap, he's going to come right up to the lady's place, and then they're going to know, and it's going to be bad, and I'm going to get caught. Ugh, this is terrible. And he's watching this kid walk up to the lady's room where the lady's hanging out, and he walks up, and he just keeps going. He's just gone, disappears. And Suemichi again goes, dang, this kid knows what's up. Wow. Good on you, kid. So now Suemichi's thinking, maybe this kid can get me out of this situation. I don't know how, but he knows what's up. Although I wouldn't be surprised if he just sees what's going on, tries to get himself out, and quite frankly, if I'm left to my own designs, this is the result of my irresponsibility. I deserve it. So he's just sitting there kind of wondering what's going to happen, really confused, really wondering, when all of a sudden, he hears a girl scream from the other side of the fence. Help, help, a thief, he's gonna kill me, somebody help me. Sorry, again, bad acting. And the samurai heard this too. And of course, them being all men of action, one of them shouts, get him, don't let him escape. And they all take off, they're all running. And a bunch of them, all the guards from all over, just run to that big hole in the fence because that was the closest to where they were trying to get to. And they all swarm through the fence, and they're all trying to clearly chase down this thief that attacked a girl just on the other side of the fence. The main entrance was locked, so they weren't actually worried about anybody sneaking in from the main entrance. They felt like it was fine, the gate was locked. This was much more urgent, and so they all took off. But Suemichi wondered, bro, I think this is that kid's doing. Now's my chance. So Suemichi dashes out of his lady's room and into the palace grounds. He looks over to where the crumble in the wall is, and there are still a few samurai just chilling, guarding at least that spot, because ne'er-do-wells could get in that way potentially. But nobody was at the main gate. And even though it was locked, he ran up to it, and he, according to the story, twisted it. Again, I'm not entirely sure what that meant, but it unlocked the gate, pushed open the doors, and he escaped. Boom! Out into the city. And he's running. He's booking it. Because although the samurai may have run in a different direction, he was not taking any chances, so he just runs for several blocks. He turned here, he turned there, hoping to lose anybody who might be tailing him, until, wouldn't you know it, he runs into his servant boy. They meet up, and they keep running for a few more blocks. But after going a small distance and realizing nobody's following them, they both start walking, and they catch their breath. And Suemichi is just dying to know, bro, what happened? How did you know to do all this? How did you make that distraction? What's going on? Tell me. And this kid just tells Suemichi, he says, well, sir, I came back to the lady's estate just as normal, and I instantly noticed that there were guards everywhere. And instantly I knew something was up. And I put two and two together and realized this may have been a trap laid for you. And especially when I got to that break in the fence, the guards started questioning me really harshly. It was all very unusual. So I lied and told them that I was the servant of the sutra reading monk that was on duty here at this estate. They let me through. And I realized I couldn't blow your cover by going next to where you actually were. So I proceeded, but then I got out. But just on the other side of the fence to the estate, I saw a girl, a servant girl of this house, and I hatched a plan. By the way, this is going to be a little bit violent, just so you know. Nobody gets hurt, but it is going to be a little bit violent because it's ancient Japan. I'm sorry, this is the story again. Don't shoot the messenger, please. But anyway, I grabbed her by the hair, I pinned her to the ground, and I tore off her upper cloak, her nice coat, as it were. She, of course, screamed, said, I'm being attacked, help, help, there's a thief, he's going to kill me. And all the samurai came running. I immediately dropped the cloak, dropped the girl, and I just took off. Because I wasn't trying to actually steal anything, I just needed a distraction for you. And I ran this way. And clearly the guards didn't know which way I actually ran off, because not long after that I ran into you, sir. And here we are. And so, the two made it home, safe and sound. Now, the story itself does make a few extra remarks, just because I guess it needs to. It's there. But the first thing that it says is that servants as clever and smart as this kid are very, very few indeed. And Suemichi better take account of this kid. He's going places. But then it also recaps that Tachibana no Suemichi was the son of the guy from the previous story, Tachibana no Norimitsu. And Norimitsu, his dad, as said in the previous story, was a former governor of Michinoku, which again, that's just how they do it. We have to know his title and his position. And thus is it said that Tachibana no Suemichi, like his father, was a brave, strong, and quick-witted man and was able to escape a very bad situation by use of his wits. Which I find a little strange because his strength didn't play any role in this. His wits didn't play any role in this. He just was irresponsible and got himself in some hot water, and his servant busted him out of it. He didn't do anything. I don't know about Suemichi, but he doesn't actually sound like that swell of a fellow. I mean, maybe he was good looking, and he does show that he does care about his lady friend and his servant kid, and so he's not a terrible guy, but like, bro, be a little more responsible, please. And I'm not entirely sure that assaulting a random servant girl, even if you weren't intending to actually hurt her, is justifiable for getting your own master out of a situation he put himself in. But that's just my personal opinion. I live in 2023. I don't live in Heian era Japan. What do I know? But that's going to actually be it for this story. Again, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, share. Please share. I want everybody to know about these stories. I think these stories, although there are some things about them that obviously don't sit well with our own modern values, I think there's still a lot of truth and a lot of really important lessons to be gleaned. And actually a lot of these stories do, at the end of them, have little snippets of morals, kind of like an Aesop's fable, But anyway, that's going to do it for now. Thank you for coming and watching. Ito katejike no koso haberi kere. And I'll see you guys later. Adios.